Hi, everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of the Future of Data Security. Today, I'm speaking with Doug Innocenti, CISO at MoonPay. Doug, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
We have quite a few guests that are typically, CISOs at banks, insurance companies, public sector, and it's really a first for me to talk with someone who's more focused on crypto. And it's a very exciting industry. I've used MoonPay. It's a great, product. I'm interested maybe to break the ice to learn more about what's happening in your world in terms of data security, what keeps you up at night.
I would say to you that probably the same thing that keeps all the other CISOs up at night keeps me up at night the same way. I think what probably is the most important thing that's going on right now is just the speed and the elevation that the company's moving at right now. We are having to maintain that security posture at the same time of increasing the velocity of the company. Something I've spoken about a great deal. I think our security team here is designed for ensuring the best possible posture possible. And we are doing everything we can. Over the last few years, we've, achieved our PCI our certification, our SOC 2 Type 2. We've increased our ISO 27701, our 2718, and we're about to go to 27701 throughout every year this year. So we take it incredibly seriously. So the biggest thing for probably you say what keeps me up is how to maintain the posture and increase the velocity at the same time, which is an interesting balancing act to do.
I see that you have a very impressive background from Wells Fargo to Trip Actions. Do you see really any big difference between that former career and what you're doing now as a CISO in the crypto space?
No, actually, no. I think that's probably an item that would probably catch people by surprise, but no, we take it incredibly seriously. What I did at the bank, the same thing I did when I was at Trip Actions Devon, the same thing here. Our goal is to make sure that we protect the assets inside the company and our customer assets the same way. Our ability to elevate our posture and move the posture forward is of the same caliber, where we just recently got our BIT license in New York. We previously got our Amica license in Europe. So that regulatory mix of between certifications and regulatory requirements is same place that I had in the previous. So it is identical. I would say that it's new. It's interesting trying to adapt a security culture that's built on so many things that you would, to your point about like a bank or other, and bring it into a new space like crypto, which is probably the most exciting thing about it, is how to bring in those same things and bringing it into an environment that's cutting edge and bleeding edge towards what we want to do and try to adapt it to fit the model. So it's never a dull day. I would say that it's definitely a challenge, but it's worth it.
Would you say there's a higher threat level when it comes to, protecting crypto users? Because we've all seen in the news different heists and people tend to go after high net worth individuals that use crypto. Would you say there's a heightened threat in that space?
I think the answer to that is no. When I come back to it, when I say that is, I think any industry that's showing great velocity at a period of time always is a threat. You could be anything. It doesn't matter what you do to do it. Yes, crypto is extremely hot, which is great. We love it. It does bring threats with it, but it's no different than any other industry that's out there. So I don't think there's an increase in any sort of way when it comes to the in market. I think that it's the responsibility of someone in my seat or anybody who might in mind to make sure we stay ahead of that trend. But I would say that when you look at banking or my previous ones or any other industry out there, I would say that it's responsibility to stay ahead of those trends and what they were, whether you're looking at how AI is being adaptive to look at security threats or net new postures that are coming in from the outside. You're required to do the same thing. It's not a thing about crypto. It's more about understanding security and how you adapt it to fit the model that you're working within.
Which makes sense. So not a whole lot of differences, just a different topic, just a more exciting topic. Broadly speaking, what would you say is the biggest data security blind spot that most fintech companies tend to miss?
I would probably flip the question back to you and say data is a commodity and an asset of the company, especially in a fintech, especially in a startup. I think that applying what I would say is more legacy security postures to data actually is impactful to the company. You need to be able to move data around. You need to be able to share data, whether it's with your partners, with your employees, or otherwise, because you're moving at a very fast pace. The importance is to be able to protect that data. So we've adopted a number of good products, and one of them, like DoControl, for example, it's one of the ones we just brought in. It enables us to create boundaries in a way that it lets us enable data as an asset to move it around in a secure manner that we know where it is, we track where it goes, we know where it's being shared, but it enables the velocity of the company to do it. So I would say that it's more so that understanding that you have a valuable asset in your data, how do you allow people to move it in a secure and trusted manner is probably the way that you enable the velocity of the company and also protect the company from a security perspective.
And from your perspective, when you deal with 160 plus countries, different jurisdictions, how challenging is it to address these different requirements? It all started with GDPR, but tends to be that every jurisdiction has a different flavor. What's your thoughts on that and how to effectively address it?
That is an ongoing challenge. It is very difficult. We have been very, I think, lucky, but not just even just from just a general perspective, but the way we architected the platform, we have a phenomenal engineering team here at MoonPay, along with the IT team that I have here. And the way we architected the platforms themselves enabled for this in the future. So we had a very built security conscious culture to how we move things forward. So I would say that having a tight partnership with both the IT and your engineering environment is going to be key to be able to do it. I was very lucky to have both of those in place to be able to construct an environment that does do it. So the way the infrastructure is built and the way we've architected the platforms enabled us to be secure and both apply to both those all those regulations that are in place, which helped us enable towards our MiCA license and obviously New York without having to make fundamental changes to the platform in any sort of way. So we've this has been a security is at the forefront we look at and we don't it's important to us. So we've actually built it into the product from the beginning.
From your perspective, talking about two ends of the threat spectrum, there's external threats and there's insider threats. We work with a lot of organizations that are concerned about insiders. What's more dangerous? How do you view these two types of threats from your perspective? I'm asking you all the philosophical questions today.
I think that, it's a good question. External threats are always an important factor to work into. I am equally as worried about insider threats as well, especially in a fast-paced startup that we have here that we're enabling for velocity to it. So I can't, realistically, I can't say I spend 100% of my time on both. But you have to look at your environment. I think it's very important for someone in my seat to be aware of what's going on in the environment internally and as well as what's going externally. So there are points in time when I have to make logical pivots of what we're going to look at, maybe adding new tooling internally because we are trying to do those to enable internal work to go faster and we need to be able to secure it, ensure it's working the proper way. And on the opposite side, we always have to watch for those external threats that are coming on, whether we're adding new jurisdictions or adding new areas at the same time. So, over our 3+ year journey as we've been constructing the security program here, it has been and will be, it's a delicate balance on a daily basis. We are looking to add net new tooling to protect for internal threats as well as the external. So I don't think there's a perfect answer to that question with it overall. I think if you don't look at one and neglect the other, it will become a problem and inversely the same way. So it's the important job to watch what's going on. It's a decision-making process. There will be trade-offs. You always have to make the trade-offs to be able to do it. It's always important to be able to embrace some of the exceptions you might have to make, but as long as you have the compensating controls to be able to adapt to what might be going on and be able to react quick enough, I think it provides you the greater ability to defend for both threats at the same time.
We always carve a bit of time on the show to talk about AI. I'm doing a CEO at Coash, my planning right now, and I was reading Gartner recently. I read a statistic that said, by 2030, 60% of businesses that haven't heavily embraced and invested in AI to modernize their operations and the product will cease to exist. And I thought that was pretty striking. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this fantastic transformation we're all living through. It's almost like every week there's something new happening. What are your thoughts on AI and cybersecurity and what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think this is where the two parts of me come together, and it's an interesting. As I evolved into the role, I come from a true architecture and engineering background, so the engineer and architect to me is excited. I think it's a what you can do and what you can do now, the speed you can do it at is simply amazing, and what you can adapt. I have a luxury of having both the IT organization and the security organization here, so what we're doing with in the IT space with I am just incredibly excited about and what we can do. We'll be able to tune things, be able to automate more. It is an enabler. I've always seen it as one of those that you can do more with less. I can retool people to do more. I can move those low hanging fruit functions out. Now, I go to the other side of me and it scares me to death on a daily basis, right? The threat levels of what can come in, what you can do now with AI technology, whether it's for deep fakes or even other areas around your security posture. Our investment that we're looking at as far as AI tech is going up, but at the same time, our AI investment for AI defensive tech is going up in the same way, whether we're monitoring prompting, watching for the data that might be exposed into it, the outside. So it is, I think, both the most incredible asset you can have, and we're embracing it, but at the same time, it's the one biggest threat that we have, whether it's from internal, as you spoke about, internally, and from an external perspective. So it is definitely an area that I think we need to find a way to embrace both sides of that. We need to embrace the acceleration we're going to do, and we've got to adapt net new ways to defend against it, but also embrace the security aspects about it. And I think there's gonna be a, I think, transformation that's going to happen with security tooling to do that, to be able to understand how you look at those tools and how they're going to adapt to it. I think you look at traditional DLP, it's not the same thing when you start looking at AI, right? You need something that's able to adapt to what you can do with it. And along, and, to your point about data, that is probably the most important portion of it. Be able to protect your data inside those. I think that not losing sight that when you look at to acquire these platforms or preventing the use of the publicly available platforms is a most important step, because what data you have and what could go into it is extremely dangerous, and being able to do it. So having a good security posture regarding it and then having the tooling around it to defend against it is very important.
One of the things I've seen recently is I go and meet some of our clients and, I'll speak to a chief data officer. On their computer, some of them already have like an assistive technology that's pretty powerful. Like it can access all the files. The guy has like a prompt dictionary, kind of this power user type of thing. But I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, we now have machines that have new and unusual access to a shared OneDrive, a shared Google Drive. And it's going to sort of start that way. But eventually, I think we'll have machine accessing wholesale data across the board. Like the days of doing a RAG will feel very simplistic. I think AI will have wholesale dynamic access to data so they can use it on demand.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's about, there's no way you can not embrace that's going to happen. If you are, you're not going to be able to keep up. The important part with this is to be able to understand what you're accessing. And this is where having adaptability to adapt and change. How you stored your data in Drive, to your point, may be different in the future. You might diversify where you put some data. Maybe some data is in Drive, some data goes to an alternate Drive platform that's out there so you can protect certain assets of the environment. I think the technology is going to allow us to evolve. And I think there are toolings that are coming out there. I'm already talking to vendors who are taking those approaches to be able to be more granular in what you access in the platform. I think those things are important. I think picking the right vendors are gonna be important. You've gotta ask the AI question now when you're selecting vendors, how your data is being used, whether it's being used for training. Does it get shared? What model does it go into? All those things come into play. So it adds a fundamental decision about how you look at selection of vendor, where that vendor may sit, how they use your data, and how you defend against that or protect against that aspect. So I think is a game changer across the board, both positively and potentially from looking at the negative impacts.
Yeah, the third party risk, the AI bill of material, we're developing things that we feel are quite exciting with AI. But when I meet customers, instead of welcoming me with open arms, they're like, oh, well, do you have ISO 42001? What about the governance? So, a lot of people are more concerned about the risk than how exciting these features are, and rightfully so. Can you share some specific examples in terms of cybersecurity operations of new types of automations and projects that you've seen are really successful, really giving a lot of benefits to make cybersecurity teams more effective?
Yeah, the one I mentioned a little bit ago, we've just recently partnered with another vendor called DoControl, It's a next generation DLP that takes a different approach to looking at data. Their combination of the way they create their business intelligence along with the new AI modeling they have with it, which really elevates your ability to make decisions faster to enable, I think is very important. I think it's one of those areas that as the marketplace changes and as you look at the dimensions of how things work, it's a change in the model. And I think it's a very important one. So that's one that we've just recently done. And I think it's actually become a game changer for us, both from internally and how our defensiveness works at the same time. The other one we are working with a couple different products around is really with our SOC that are monitoring using some of the new AI technology that's out there to increase our SOC and network operations response, watching at how we look at incidents and how they respond back. We're seeing incredible returns on investment there with reduction in time, being able to self-close or provide immediate direction and the learning on it. I think both of those in general are probably one of the two of the biggest areas, in my opinion, that I think are going to be enablers when you look at AI and how you use data to your benefit to be able to learn and train from it to be able to do those things. So I think they're incredible. And the last one is, and we're working a great deal on it, is really looking at our SIM and trying to make sure we apply much more new AI-based tech on top of it to look at data analyzation and then we put in place. So I think those are areas I think they really can provide great lift, and they're definitely helping us here at MoonPay.
Based on what you've seen, and I'm a military helicopter pilot by background, so I always think about the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. These AIs in a way eventually will be able to do that. So how far do you think we are from like a true AI risk analyst or true AI SOC analyst that could literally, in a majority of cases, get the job done?
I'm not, I've seen a lot of great tooling that's out there that really help you make that final decision, but since you're a pilot, something I wanted to be for a long time, but never got to it. But I would say that the one thing that's not there in the product is the gut instinct that that's there. AI can't do that quite there yet, that it can't see beyond what it sees in front of itself, there's an instinction, right? There's that human element that's not there yet that you can look at it, that I think that when you look at security, especially if you're in a seat of a SOC analyst, that the tool might tell you something, but you really need to make that you go back and look at it because there's something that whether you've seen a previous pattern or you see something that's there. So until we get to a point that I've even told my team, the tools are there to enable you to go and to perform faster or to help you do better. I don't want you to trust the tool as the answer to the problem. If your gut tells you to go look, I embrace you to go look at. I want you to challenge it. If you don't challenge it and you're just taking the answer on it, there's a problem. So I've told my team, like, if something's in it, I want you to go look deeper. If it says yes, but you feel no, go look and go in it. And if we find something, we find it. But that's the only way we're going to get better across the board. So I think it could get there. When, I don't know, but I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you because of your background in Wells Fargo, like let's qualify that as a large, historical bank. Often things are kind of set in stone. There's a lot of historical structure and concerns. A company like MoonPay, a great crypto, startup, really giving an opportunity to start from a blank slate of paper. Often I think it gives you a chance to do things better than the old model on constraints. What are one or two things that, in a setting like this, you can approach security in a better way, unconstrained by things of the past?
I think when you look at those, I mean, I do have a feeling about this, whether you look at my where you like when I was at Wells and where now. Security is universal. I don't think it's something you do differently in any way. But what I do think is the ability to try, learn, not fail, but say, okay, it's not going to work and pivot to the next thing. You're right when you would say, like when I worked at Wells Fargo, that decision making process took an extenuated amount of time. By the time you did it, there were probably 5 or 6 other products that came and went, and you never got a chance to see them. I think the ability that actually gives us the greatest amount of velocity and actually has made us stronger is the ability to attempt different products in parallel to one another, to have that innovative ability to try and learn, to test and innovate, to see what happens. I think it actually has accelerated our ability to deliver a high quality security product for us that would have taken decades to get to that point when I worked at the bank. So with that, we've gotten stronger, we've gotten more defensive, we've actually gotten faster, which I think is a real testament to the program. But I think that being here actually was an enabler for security. You're able to do things in a way that actually made it better, in a way that you weren't having to sit through a tremendous amount of the bureaucracy that was going to hold you up from making it better. As we looked at it, we want to build a security first culture. And with that, we want to ensure that we're communicating things. And that's one of the other areas that I believe that was sometimes there were always some things when I worked there, that previous ones where some of the security postures were, I would say, in the background, not so transparent to what was going on. I think here, one of the things that's very important is to having a transparent security culture is everyone here becomes a security professional. I want all of the employees to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, how we're protecting, but also understanding those internal focuses. So that way, when things, happen, which they will, that we are all visible in what's going on and what we want to defend against. So I think having that open nature also comes into play and actually makes things more beneficial and more secure.
If you were to give yourself at the start of your career a piece of advice for maybe somebody that's starting in this exciting time in security, what would be your top pieces of advice?
I'm getting more sleep when I was younger. Find a way to bring in as many different inputs into your decision making as you possibly can. I think that is something that's probably something that I've learned over time, that I'm an amalgamation of different leaders and managers that I work for over time. You piece those pieces and parts. I learn different skills from all those different areas, but in the same respect, when it comes to security and technology, is embracing the ability to listen to multiple professionals in there, is whether I listen to, one or two or three different data security professionals or network security professionals, and then, taking that information that they gave me, those concepts that they may have shared with me, and stitching it into a net new thing. I think embracing those levels of partnership and understanding and then turning that into something that is yours is a very important thing. So keeping an open mind, bringing in other disciplines, embracing how your team looks and how you look at it, I think really will help defend and bring a much more collaborative environment and a more secure environment in the long term.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. But before we wrap up, if people want to follow along your work, Doug, where can they go? What's the best place to go?
So my LinkedIn profile is out there. So you said you've got that. So please look me up on LinkedIn. The other one, we have our security page at security@moonpay.com. If you want to see what we're doing and how we're doing it, we always keep everything up and running there. So those would be the two places to see.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Doug. It's been a really good conversation, and I've learned a lot about crypto and what a great company MoonPay is. So let's keep in touch, and thank you again for joining.